بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. So tonight inshallah we're going to begin studying the chapter of Zakah, the chapter of Zakah. And similarly to what we mentioned in the beginning of fasting, that the ulama select, or before the seasons of ibadat, they study those and revise and teach those chapters of fiqh connected to the season of ibadah that's upcoming. So we did fasting because Ramadan is on the brink, inshallah. And then we are taking now zakah. This is kind of in reverse order of the book or the books of the fuqaha. We take in zakah because an interesting mas'ala that's going to come up with us, inshallah, over one of the upcoming lessons is Uthman radiallahu anhu used to announce when he was the Khalifa, he used to say that إِنَّ هَذَا الشَّهْرَ شَهْرُ زَكَاتِكُمْ فَأَدُّوا مَا عَلَيْكُمْ مِنَ الدُّيُونِ ثُمَّ أَخْرِجُوا زَكَاةَ أَمْوَالِكُمْ. He used to say that this is the month that is the month of your zakah. That's the month of your zakah. So therefore, pay off your debts and deduct the debts that you owe, and then pay off your zakah. Now, our focus on this point is Uthman radiallahu anhu saying, this month is the month of your zakah. Now, this is an interesting point. The fiqh of this, we'll mention it inshallah, it comes in the end of zakah. When the mas'ala of giving out the zakah comes, then here it comes. When to give it out, about delaying the zakah and those things, we'll mention in exact detail how and what to calculate and what to deduct and what to do and the time of doing it, inshallah, when we come to that mas'ala. But for now, this statement of Uthman radiallahu anhu, that this month is the month of your zakah, ulama have written little booklets or treaties on this hadith, on this narration of Uthman radiallahu anhu. They were discussing when is this month that Uthman radiallahu anhu is referring to. When is it? Some of the Salaf used to say, we've lost a large amount of ilm because we don't know exactly when is this month of zakah. We don't know exactly when is this month of zakah. The scholars then differ. When is the month of the zakah? With three opinions being the main one. That they say Uthman that may have been the month of zakah for the Sahaba. Number one being Muharram. That it is the month of the Muharram. And some of the fuqaha have actually strengthened this opinion. Ibn Aqil from the Hanabila and others have said perhaps it was Muharram. Others say it is Sha'ban. And that's the month we are in now. So that's our connection to this chapter at this time of teaching it. The third opinion is Ramadan. And that is what's upcoming. So hence it's the time to study and just mention a few main masail connected to zakah. Then zakah means, there's a few meanings of zakah linguistically. One of the meanings is that zakah is to purify. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. The one who has purified himself, his actions, his nafs, he's attained success. So zakah is to purify. Another meaning of zakah is to increase. Zakah means to increase. And that connects to this ibadah called zakah. In Shar'i terms, zakah means that a specific amount of specific wealth is taken at a specific time and distributed to specific people. That's what it means in Sharia. Linguistically, it means what I said. And that's because when a person gives out his zakah, he purifies his wealth. Therefore, in Al-Humaydi narrates in the Musnad that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, Aisha radiyallahu anha narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, ما خالطت الزكاة مالا قط إلا أفسدته. That zakah does not continue, the zakah wealth that needs to be given out does not continue mixing with your actual wealth, except that it will be a means of destruction for your wealth. Sufyan, one of the narrators in the chain, he says the meaning of zakah, wealth mixing with your wealth, means to delay giving it out. To delay giving it out or not give it out at all. This leads to destruction of the wealth. Because and that destruction happens in a few ways. Either there's no barakah in the wealth. Or that wealth, Allah will cause it to be destroyed. Either some of it at a time or everything. Or it will be a means of negativity towards the person. That is the meaning of, and a few other things the ulama mentioned regarding zakah not being barakah for a person. Regarding zakah being a destruction for a person. Then zakah is a reason to increase the wealth. Zakah is something that physically you're losing wealth, you're giving it away. But actually it's a means of increasing the wealth. As Allah describes charity in general, وَمَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّن شَيْءٍ فَهُوَ يُخْلِفُهُ. Anything that you spend, Allah will give you something better in return. Will give you something more in return. And the best thing to spend is those things that are obligatory on you. Number one being zakah. And zakah is a means of a person tasting the sweetness of iman. It's a means of a person tasting the sweetness of iman. Ibn Majah rahmatullahi alayhi narrated that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, ذَاقَ طَعْمَ الْإِيمَانِ. These people, he mentions 3 of them, they've tasted the sweetness of iman. The third person, or one of the 3, is that person who takes out his zakah. He takes it out properly, and he takes out from his good wealth. He doesn't take out from his lower wealth. He takes out from the good part of his wealth. The reason why zakah is a means of sweetness in iman is because it is from the actions that only the person and Allah knows. It's between you and Allah. You know your wealth, you know how you're counting it, you know about yourself giving it out. In reality, you should be the one giving it out. Not many more will know or should know or will know what are you giving out, how much are you giving out, etc. So since it is between you and Allah and it is from the secret actions, it's a means of sweetness of iman. Zakah itself has many benefits. On top of what I mentioned, we're going to mention when we discuss the distribution of zakah. Who receives zakah? Some people receive zakah because of their personal need, because they themselves are in need. So they have general difficulty, general need in their life. We give them general zakah for all their needs. We're going to mention what are the needs and who are these people exactly when it comes to the end of zakah. Number 2, there's other people who receive zakah irrespective of the wealth they have or who they are, if they are obviously Muslim, but these people receive zakah because of the situation of need they are in or the Muslims are in. So in that way, zakah helps the entire community, everyone, singularly, each person, anyone in need, and in the bigger picture, even if this person can afford it, like he's a traveler, and at that point, he doesn't have enough funds to reach home. Even if he's the richest man at home, he can take zakah. To help him reach home. So that's the benefit of zakah in general and also specifically. So that's a small intro into zakah. We're going to mention the fiqh now, inshallah. So the Shaykh says about zakah, he says, وَهِيَ وَاجِبَةٌ عَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ حُرٍّ مَلَكَ نِصَابًا. So that is basically most of the stipulations connected to who gives the zakah and when does zakah become obligatory. The Shaykh says that وَهِيَ وَاجِبَةٌ, zakah is obligatory. It is obligatory. From the many ayat and the ahadith about zakah that indicates to us it is obligatory. It is from the pillars of Islam. Who is it obligatory on? The Shaykh says وَعَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ, on every Muslim. Therefore, a non-Muslim, just like what we said in fasting, if he were to give zakah, if he were to for some reason give zakah, then he accepted Islam, we'd say his zakah is not valid. obviously he'd start the hawl and all of that again because he was not Muslim. But we'd say his zakah is not valid. If he were to die, we won't take out zakah, etc. from his wealth. Zakah is not obligatory on him in the world. But the disbelievers, they are obliged in reality to follow Islam. Therefore, these rules in reality apply to them. Therefore, these rules in reality apply to them. So when we say that these actions of fasting or salah or zakah, it is not obligatory on the kafir. It's not accepted from the kafir. It's not, a kafir should not, if he performed it, any ibadah, it's not valid. We do not say that he is totally absolved from it. In the akhirah, he is accountable. In the akhirah, he is accountable. So he'd be punished for these ibadat that he did not do. And this is a mas'ala linked in usul, where the ulama say, are the disbelievers, should the laws of Islam, the commands and the prohibitions, be applied to them? That's what the mas'ala connects. Are they, even though they are not Muslim, are they in reality obliged to follow the laws of Islam? Because in reality, they should be Muslim. They should be Muslim. Most of the ulama say yes. They say yes. So that's a mas'ala I mentioned connected to the akhirah. An example of what connects to the dunya, for example, can you sell food to a disbeliever in the day in Ramadan? Can you sell food to a disbeliever in the day in Ramadan, meaning he's going to eat it right now, in the day? So if he should be fasting, then the answer is no. Right? That's in theory. That's just to build the mas'ala as an example. Many times in fiqh and usul al-fiqh, sometimes the fuqaha may differ what their asl they build because of some or other reason. So we said that it's obligatory on every Muslim, hurrin, i.e. not a slave, and that they mention not a slave, because a slave does not own his wealth. He does not own his wealth. The person who owns the slave and the slave's wealth. And therefore, even if a slave were to buy himself free, so that happens, we'll come to it. I think the Shaykh mentions the chapter where a slave agrees with his master that he's going to buy himself free over installments. As long as, even if one installment remains to be paid before freedom for the slave, there's no zakah on him. Right? The last thing with this is that if the person is half a slave and half free, it's called muba'ad, half of him is free and half of him is a slave, then he pays zakah on that percentage of him that is free. So we just touch on that for the sake of fiqh, because practically it's not relevant today. Then the Shaykh says, Malaka Nisaab. This Muslim owns the Nisab. Before I come to that, if we pick out what the Shaykh said, and here's a very important mas'ala, I'm going to link the one I'm going to mention now to a very important mas'ala. It's very important in zakah in general, so we're going to digress off this to mention a very important mas'ala. The Shaykh says, وَعَلَى كُلِّ مُسْلِمٍ, on every Muslim. So if you notice, he doesn't say, like in other chapters, like Salah, they say on a baligh, a person who is mature and aqil, who is sane, etc. He doesn't say that. He says merely every Muslim. And that's because zakah is obligatory on every Muslim, whether you are sane or insane, whether you are young or old. Every Muslim, zakah is obligatory on them if they own the nisab. And the reason for that, I'm going to mention the dalil in terms of a qa'idah, in terms of building the masail from a qa'idah. The dalil for the qa'idah, maybe we'll mention it later as we go along. So the dalil the qa'idah is, this is an important qa'idah. In fact, some of the fuqaha outside the madhab, in the Shafi'i madhab, al-Rafi'i and others, they've connected 10 or 20 odd masail connected to this qa'idah I'm mentioning. Connected to this qa'idah I'm going to mention. And that is zakah obligatory? Is the obligation of zakah connected to the wealth or connected to the person? Is it obligatory on the wealth or on the person? What does that mean by way of example? A person has, let's say for sheep, he has the Nisaab. He has 40 sheep. That is the Nisaab that you now give one sheep. Now you give one sheep. 1 year goes by, he doesn't pay Zakah. 2 years go by, he doesn't pay Zakah, or he decides to pay Zakah, right? Either he doesn't at exactly 2 years and just after he decides, or at 2 years he decides. Same difference, or no difference. So here, this person owes Zakah for how many years? For 2 years. For 2 years Zakah. If we say Zakah is obligatory on the wealth, if we say it is obligatory on the wealth, that means this person, now he comes, he says, Zakah is obligatory on my wealth. I owe for 2 years. Year 1, how many sheep do I have? How many sheep did I have? 40 sheep. How many for Zakah? 1. He deducts 1. He takes 1 out, right? That's for Zakah. Year 2, we said Zakah is obligatory on, or connected, the obligation is connected to the wealth of the person. So therefore for year 2, he looks at the wealth. How many sheep do I have after I took out for year 1? We say you have 39. Is there Zakah on 39 sheep? The answer is no. The answer is no. So here he does not give Zakah for year 2. If we said Zakah is obligatory on the person, we'd say how many sheep do you have? You have 40 sheep. How many years do you owe? 2 years. So you have to take out 2 sheep. You have to take out 2 sheep because the Zakah is on you. And you owe for 2 years, you had the Nisab. That's how you look at it. This is very important for a few masail. I'll mention a few. And then I'll mention the madhab, how do they look at this mas'ala. So that mas'ala that I just explained, if a person owes Zakah for many years, how do you work back? Meaning, do you take, if he has the Nisab, right? He has $1,000, he has $1,000, right? So the Nisab is, what's it going to be, 25? So the Nisab is, whatever the Nisab is, but he has more than the Nisab. He has $1,000. He hasn't paid Zakah for a few years. His amount he's going to take out for Zakah, 2.5%. So that is $25. $25. If we say the Zakah is obligatory on him, let's say for 5 years, he hasn't paid. He's working backwards. You take 25 times 5. And if we say Zakah is obligatory on the wealth, he take 1,000, get the 2.5% of that, 25. That's for year 1, he's paid on 1,000. The Zakah is obligatory on the wealth. So year 2, he takes 1,000 minus 25. The remainder, get 2.5% of that. Deduct that from the wealth. For year 3, he'd take that new total and get 2.5%, and like that he'd work. Like that he'd work. So that's an important mas'ala to know. The madhab of the Hanabila is that Zakah is obligatory on the wealth. Obligatory on the wealth. But it has a connection to the person as well. So they basically merge the two opinions. Therefore, what do they say? They say you have masail like what? You have the Nisab and Zakah is obligatory on you now. This is your wealth that's in your hand, let's say in your wallet. Zakah is obligatory on this wealth in your wallet. Let's say that's all you have, it's on your wallet. So it's the ayn, the Zakah is linked to the wealth itself. It's linked on the money in your wallet. But it also links to you. Therefore, you owe that amount. So if you were to gain money after your Zakah, that's the amount that you have to pay, you can pay it. So that amount in your wallet, you didn't touch. Even though the Zakah is on the actual wealth. The actual wealth is what's in your wallet. But because it has a link to you, as well, the fact you gave that amount from other wealth that you got in after immediately what you counted your Zakah, that's fine. They say also that if you had profits from your wealth, that doesn't follow Zakah. It's not as a result. We're not saying that the profit is from wealth of Zakah, so it has to be given in Zakah. It's for you. And because we say it's connected to wealth, but it has a connection to you, we get one last mas'ala I'll mention, and that is money that is owed to you. Whether a debt in broad terms a debt, or not. Like in fiqh terms, we can say a debt and a non-debt. In reality, both money would be owed to you. You say a debt meaning as a result of a loan. As a result of a loan, and other debts are like you've sold something on credit. You've sold something on credit. Somebody broke something of yours, so he owes you money. Or he injured you, in which you have to pay a fee. You have to pay a fee for breaking the person's bones or whatever it may be. We'll mention that at the end of fiqh. So then therefore, we say that which you are owed, it's not obligatory on you to give zakah on it the day of your zakah. Because zakah is linked to the wealth itself. And that wealth you don't have in your hands. But because it is linked to you, and that money is owed to you, it is permissible for you to give out zakah on that money owed to you on the day of your zakah. When it came into your hands, you pay zakah backwards for the amount of years you didn't have it in your hand. You pay backwards. So that's obligatory when you get it in your hands, because zakah is connected to the aynul mal, the actual wealth. But since it's connected to you, you can give zakah on that wealth that's not literally by you, as your zakah years pass. You can do that. Right, we'll mention the fiqh of zakah of a debt, inshallah, as we go along, towards the end, maybe in the next dars, inshallah. So that's an important mas'ala to know. Based on that mas'ala, we say that zakah is obligatory on a person even if he is not baligh or he is not sane, because zakah is linked to the wealth. If this person that is a child, that is a baby, that is insane, they have the nisaab and the other stipulations are fulfilled, then their wali would take out the zakah on their behalf. The wali will take out the zakah on their behalf, because zakah is linked to the wealth. So that's an important mas'ala that we've pulled out from how the Shaykh phrased it. And then he said that if the person owns the nisaab, so zakah is given generally on 4 types of wealth: gold and silver, and what is linked to gold and silver, meaning currencies. What comes out of the earth, meaning crops, seeds, and certain fruits. And also what connects to coming out of the earth, like minerals and certain, we can say, treasures that we're going to mention, inshallah. Number 3 that you give zakah on are those things that you have for sale, your trading stock, but not merely anything for sale. We'll come to the fiqh of it, inshallah, in the next dars. Lastly, the last thing you give zakah on are your animals, your cattle, meaning your cows, goats, and sheep, they 2 in 1, and camels. So those are the animals, those are the things you give zakah on. The nisaab for these 4 things, we're going to mention it as we go along. But a person who owns the nisaab, that is the person who we look at, is he going to give the zakah or not? Under the nisaab, there's no question this person will not be giving zakah. So that we said 4 things, right? So zakah, when it comes to, the nisaab, when it comes to gold and silver and cash, your currencies, and also your trading stock, when we say that they have a nisaab, they have an approximate nisaab. The nisaab is not exactly on the dot. Meaning, when we give the amount, we're going to mention silver's worth is 595 grams, gold 85 grams. This is not an exact amount. Meaning, if a person were to have slightly less, 594.5 grams, then he'd still give zakah. A bit more than slightly less, that's why I gave a specific amount. A bit more than slightly less, then no nisaab. But we don't say he must have exactly 595. A little less than 85 in his gold or silver or currencies or trading stock, he still is a person of nisaab. The rest of the things, when we mention those things that come, grains and crops and fruits, or animals, those, the nisaab is precise. When we say 40 sheep, when we say 120 sheep, when we say 30 camels, it's 30, it's 40 on the dot exactly. When we say the Nisaab for grains and fruits, it will come out to approximately 612. We mean exact. We mean exact, right? So that's important to know when it comes to the Nisaab. The last mas'ala with regards to the stipulations of zakah is that the Shaykh says, وَلَا زَكَاةَ فِي مَالٍ حَتَّى يَحُولَ عَلَيْهِ الْحَوْلِ, that zakah is not obligatory on wealth, right? On this nisab, until a person has the nisab for one complete lunar year. One complete lunar year, not solar year, one complete lunar year. So that there's ijma', some of the fuqaha have mentioned that you look at the lunar year, The mas'ala of calculating it with the Gregorian calendar, especially for companies and stuff, we'll discuss it inshallah another time. But for this dars, we're going to mention, as most of the fuqaha, almost everyone, there's ijma' from the mutaqaddimin, is that you use the lunar calendar. One whole year. That means when a person owns the nisab, from that moment, on that day, going one lunar year, so he owns the nisab on one Muharram, he has to have the nisab in his possession from that moment, right through the year until one Muharram. It is then when we say he has to give zakah. It is there where we say he has to give zakah. And this is for wealth that actually has this stipulation of a hawl. Not all the wealth that I mentioned have the stipulation of a hawl. The Shaykh then says that those things that come from the earth, grains and seeds, they don't have a hawl. Allah says, وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ. The day you harvest it, the day of harvest, the day you now cut it from the trees, or you harvested the crops and you weigh it with the stipulation we'll mention, then it's that day that you now have to give zakah. Immediately you give your zakah. And so for your trading stock, for your gold and silver and currencies, and for animals that has this stipulation of a hawl. The treasures, the metals, they have no hawl. Right? And so one other thing that's an important mas'ala, it's coming next. So therefore, the hawl is one lunar year. The fuqaha say as well here that this lunar year is approximate. It's approximate. Therefore, if it were to be less than a hawl by the most common narration, the most common riwayah in the madhab is that sa'atain. They say, let's translate it as 2 hours. Less than a hawl by 2 hours, the zakah is still obligatory. We say 2 hours because the fuqaha say sa'atain. They say what we literally translate as 2 hours, right? Because they say it is difficult sometimes to know exactly the moment you own the nisab. So therefore, if we give it a little bit less for safety. So it's not exact to the minute, a bit less is okay. This connects to where? Two main masail. If a person were to die before the hawl by a little bit, we say zakah is still obligatory on him. The other very strong opinion on what is overlooked for a hawl is half a day. So we say that is approximately 6 hours. We'll explain that, how we get that now. In fact, it may be 12, but I think some of the mashayikh mentioned 6. I'll explain how we get that now. In fact, let me explain it now. And that's because the fuqaha, when they say a sa'a, when they say a time, and they're referring to actual time, then it's also similar to our time of 60 minutes. Because Rasulullah ﷺ said that Friday has 12 hours. The day of Friday, the day has 12 hours. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu also mentioned that a day being 24 hours. So the fuqaha, when they say day and night, they mean 12 hours a day and 12 hours a night. This is when they're speaking of time in general. Like remember our mas'ala of tayammum, how long does a person wipe on his khuf or jawrab, whatever he's wiping on? We said 24 hours. This is different when they say half the night. When they say half the night or a third of the night, this is where the calculation is different. It doesn't mean half of 12, 6. No, it means the actual night of Maghrib to when Fajr comes in. Okay, so that's an important mas'ala to know. that it's overlooked by a small amount. So if a person were to die, so half of a day is 6 hours. That's what we go. 12 hours is a day, half of a day. نصف يوم ولا يضر لو نقص نصف يوم. That's how they phrase it. That it doesn't harm if less than half a day. Half a day or less before a hawl, that would not affect. So if a person were to die before the hawl by half a day, 6 hours, we say zakah still needs to be taken out of his estate, because he owes the zakah. Or if a person's wealth were to be destroyed, or he were to do a transaction where he spent a lot of his wealth, less than the nisab or a large chunk, we say the nisab doesn't fall. The amount you owed is what you have to give zakah on. The amount you had is what you have to give zakah on. Even though it was not before it was a bit before the hawl. Therefore the hawl essentially is by the minute. You see the amount, you see the time you own the nisab. If you own the nisab 2 p.m., 2:15 p.m., plus minus, you may not know exactly, but you can roughly estimate. Hence they say we go back a little bit and allow maximum half a day, 2 hours to 6 hours. You allowed that amount. So because you may have gotten it at 1 p.m. but you couldn't remember and you got it at 3 p.m. for example. So you would get that estimation, but you kind of need an exact time. Because your zakah day, especially if you're a businessman or you're trading in stocks, for example, where there's fluctuations, you need a time. You need a time where you're going to actually calculate what you have. Because maybe money came in or went out, especially if it's large amounts that actually affect the nisab or the amount you're taking out in a big way, you need an exact time. Therefore, on the madhab, the hawl is taqribi. It's approximate. Therefore, on many of the other madhab, what I've seen from some of the scholars, especially in the examples they give, they use actually maghrib. So if you own the nisab on 1 Muharram, then the hawl would be at maghrib on the 1st of Muharram. So you'd look at what you own at maghrib on 1 Muharram. On the madhab, it is taqribi, it is approximate. Hence, it may be, Wallahu alam, that you work with the hour. So you got the nisab at 2 p.m., then at 2 p.m. or 2:15 or 2:17 p.m. 1 year later, 1st Muharram to 1st Muharram, 10th Muharram to 10th Muharram, but we're also allowing that approximation. So we deduct 6 hours or 2 hours on the most common riwayah. So you got it 2 p.m. So we're looking at your nisab, what your value of the things you have at 12 p.m. or at most 8 a.m. And that is when your hawl ends. Money that came in after that is for the next year. Money that you came in is for the next hawl. Money that you spent after 8 p.m. you still have to give zakah on because 8 p.m. struck. Right? That's an important mas'ala. Then we mentioned so now an important mas'ala, and that is before we go to that, we say this hawl is 1 year, one complete year. I said you have to have the nisab from beginning to end. Therefore, and we also said that the nisab is approximate. So if during the hawl a person's worth dropped slightly during the year, we'd say his hawl does not break. Hawl meaning the zakah year. His hawl does not break. Especially when sometimes fluctuations happens with currencies or with gold or silver. So your currency's worth, or the currency itself, so its worth to gold or silver drops. And especially if there's fluctuations a lot, then a small amount would not break your hawl. In fact, some of the mashayikh have even mentioned to me specifically that when I mentioned this mas'ala, that if there were to be a drop of the worth of a currency for a few hours, so the way he phrased it kind of meant like there's a drop more than a small amount that's overlooked, but because the drop is small, the drop is short hours, because this thing is it's open to fluctuation, then it came back to your own nisab again, then it would be overlooked. Though the fuqaha say, this is the next mas'ala, the fuqaha say that if a person has less than the nisab during the hawl, then his hawl breaks. So you look less than the nisab before the end of the hawl by 2 hours to 6 hours, we say that does not affect. But during the hawl, it breaks during the hawl, less than the nisab breaks, unless it is small amount that is overlooked with regards to trading stocks or gold or silver. But for animals, an animal died, the end. That's the end of the haul. You have now 39 sheep or 4 camels. Your haul breaks. Your haul breaks. Another thing that breaks your haul is if you exchanged your wealth for something that is completely different to it. So you exchanged or you sold. You exchanged or you sold your wealth. You sold your wealth. So you took cash and you bought animals. Animals that are not for trading. Animals that are not for trading. So they are totally different. So then your whole of your cash breaks. Not your entire cash, but it can. This amount is, you don't count it. It's gone. It's gone. And this animals that you get in, you do not count them the whole of the money that you have. If the money that you have is still Nisaab and the haul is still continuing, it has its own haul. That those animals start its own haul. Therefore, when we said a person has a day of zakah, he can have more than one day. With regards to the wealth he has, he could have livestock, he could have cash, he could have grains and seeds, etc. So he has 3 different hauls. He has 3 different days of zakah. So that's important to know. So exchanging or buying or selling your wealth for something totally different. If you have sheep for grazing and you switch them for camels for grazing, you don't say the camels build on the haul of the sheep. You say it's totally different. It's totally different. There's 2 exceptions. 2 exceptions. And that is when you use cash or gold or silver to purchase trading stock, or you exchange trading stock for gold or silver or cash. The haul continues. The haul continues because they are connected. We'll mention it inshallah. The second thing is when you were to change gold for silver, or silver for gold, or gold for a currency, or silver for a currency, or one currency for another currency. You say the haul continues. Those things are deemed as one. So the haul continues. But the moment you want to buy animals, or the moment you get crops, and there's zakah connected to crops, not for trading, but for the zakah of crops, we'll mention a situation where it comes in, then that would break the haul. That would break the, meaning this new thing that you're buying would not continue with the haul of the money that you had the haul going on if you had the Nisaab. So, and this is one exception to this, and that is if a person does this exchanging or selling or gifting, he exchanges his wealth through gifting or to selling or through some way of getting rid of his wealth as a means, as a loophole to not pay zakah. So he doesn't want to pay zakah, so he gifts his wealth. He gives his wealth to somebody. Whether they have an agreement that after my zakah day give me the wealth back, gift it back to me or not. Or he just sells it. But his intention is to not pay zakah. We're going to mention the hadith, maybe just now or in the next verse, where there's the wording in the hadith indicates that Rasulullah is indicating that there's no room for loopholes. Hence, one of the strictest madhahib, the Hanabil and the Malikiyah, they're very, very strict on loopholes. And they're very strict on the intentions or that are behind actions. They'll base many actions not on the apparent, but on the intention of the person doing the action, validating or invalidating the action. Based on the intention, even though outwardly the action could be valid. Like a person gifting somebody something to run away from zakah, we say invalid is the gift, even though he did everything correctly from the fiqh of a gift perspective. So if a person were to give his wealth away to run away from zakah, we mentioned 2 masail. Number 1, he has to pay zakah still on the wealth. Which wealth? The wealth he gave away or the wealth that came in? So he had 120 sheep, 120 sheep. He gave it away for grazing, not for trading. And then he sold it so that he doesn't pay zakah. He sold it so he doesn't pay zakah. We say this person, zakah, number 1, is obligatory on you still. Number 2, not only on the wealth that you got for the sale of your sheep. That goes into the rest of your cash that you have. But you have to give zakah on your sheep. You have to give zakah on the sheep. So you have to give 2 sheep. And we'll mention the fiqh of that when we come to it. You have to give zakah on 2 sheep. Still, even though it's not your wealth anymore, but because you ran away from zakah. The last mas'ala, the second last mas'ala is, we say for the first year, he gives zakah. He did he did this transaction to run away from zakah this year. So for this year, he gives zakah. Next year and onwards, we don't say you have to pay zakah. It's over now. The last mas'ala is this aspect of fleeing from zakah. At which point in the whole do we now look at, do we allow the person leeway? Meaning, is it towards the end? Is it towards the beginning? Is it towards the middle? At which point do we say that if you did intentionally change your wealth so you can not pay zakah, we'd say you did it at this point, it's overlooked. But now you did it now, no, now it counts as fleeing from zakah, running away from zakah, so you have to pay it. The Zahir of Al-Muntaha, which is the Mu'tamad of the Madhab, along with other fuqaha like Sahib Burhanuddin ibn Muflih, they say that this fleeing from zakah is connected to the entire hawl. To the entire hawl. If at any point the person decides to run away from zakah, then that wealth is as if he's not run away from zakah. He has to keep it into his account for the day of zakah. There's another two opinions, Sahib al-Iqna' and Ibn Qudama. They are a bit easier. Some of them saying once half the year hawl goes, then from there you start looking at this mas'ala. And I think al-Iqna' is even easier. He says towards the end of the hawl. That's when you look at it. That's when you look at it. Before that he's free to do what he wants. But now that zakah is coming near, now here we start looking at this mas'ala. But the mashhur, the mu'tamad is any time throughout the hawl. So we mention one mas'ala, one very important mas'ala, and that is that wealth comes in through the year. Wealth comes in through the hawl. This wealth that we get through the year, do we have to pay, does each wealth that you get hold of, that is the Nisaab, does each wealth have its own hawl? Or is all the wealth connected to one hawl? Or how does it work? So we'll say two situations, and situation two has two situations, right? Number one, if you have the Nisaab, and number two, or at the point when you have the Nisaab, and number two, when you don't have the Nisaab. So number two, when you don't have the Nisaab, all the wealth of the type of wealth that you have, and this more so connects to like your gold and silver, or in our day currencies. Let's use currency as the example, but even it applies to animals, etc. All the animals that you get, or all the money that you get, let's use money as an example, until you have the Nisaab, they all go into pushing you to get the Nisaab. So irrespective of the reason you've got this money, irrespective of the reason, whether it is a sale, whether it is a gift, whether it is inheritance, whatever it may be, until you have the Nisaab, they deem the same. So once you have the Nisaab, we now look at the next mas'ala. But until you have the Nisaab, no matter what the reason of this money that you got, or these animals that you got, whether you inherited, gifted it, whatever it may be, until you get the Nisaab, it all deemed as one. Right? That's situation one. Situation two, when you have the Nisaab, already, now the wealth divides into two categories. This is the mashhur of the madhab, and also many of the fuqaha go on this mas'ala, but we'll explain an important thing now. And that is, if now that you have the Nisaab, money that you get in is one of two things. Either it is a result, I said money because the money is our example, or animals. This mas'ala links to these two. Your money, when I say money, currency, gold and silver, what we're mentioning money because that's more prevalent and used by people today, and also animals. If you get more money through this hawl, through the hawl, once you have the Nisaab, either it is profits from your transaction, or it is not. Either it is profits from your transaction, or it is not. If it is not, meaning you were gifted money, you inherited money, you were paid money for the person broke something, some wealth of yours, so he owed you the money, so he paid that money to you. All of those things are separate, and money that you get as profit from your transactions, that is separate. And for animals, if the animals give birth, they are connected, that is one thing. And to get more animals from a different manner, you were gifted animals, you inherited animals, even if it be the same jins, so sheep, and you got sheep, even though the Nisaab would be one. Once you have the Nisaab, now there's two situations. Either it is, so what we mentioned in the previous mas'ala of money, the exact same thing applies for animals. Except for animals, you don't get the profit because that is not trading. It's not for trading. But here you have, in place of profit, you have when the animals give birth. Right? So that's exactly the same, except the one is profit and the other one is the animals giving birth. So the fuqaha say, the mashhur of the madhab is that if you have your nisab and you get money as a result of profits, then all of this, the whole of all your profits is the whole of the asl. The asl meaning your original money that you had the nisab of, that you use. Once you had the nisab, then money from that you got for profits, the whole is the whole of your original money. Same for the animals. The whole is for newborn livestock is the whole of its parents. The whole of its parents. And other wealth that you get, you were gifted wealth, you inherited wealth, or you were gifted animals. Even if you have sheep, but you were gifted more sheep, or inherited, whatever it may be, other than profits or giving birth offspring for animals, then in this case they say we look at your asl, the actual money you had, the actual animals that you had. If it will follow the original money in terms of the nisab, but it will have its own hawl. It will have its own hawl. So you have in your hand more than the nisab. Let's say the nisab is 2,000. You have 5,000. You have 5,000, let's say, in your hand from your transactions, everything. Or let's say once you have 2,000. You use this 2,000, you got profits, it became 4,000. Then you were gifted money, or you inherited 10,000. You say, does the hawl start on this 10,000? We say yes, because the asl, because you had already the nisab. If you had less than the nisab, we'd say this 10,000 goes to the amount that you had. Let's say you're 200. So now the 10,000 would go to the 200. We'd say now the nisab is completed and the hawl starts. But now that the hawl started, we say the 10,000. Will we start a hawl on it? We say yes, because you already have the nisab. But the day of paying this 10,000, the hawl of the 10,000 would be different to the hawl of your in our example, your 5,000. The exact same principle for animals. Therefore, you'd have a different hawl for 10,000. You were gifted another amount of money, you'd have a different hawl for that money. So a person would have many days of zakah. Many days of zakah. That's the mashhur of the madhab. That is the mashhur of the madhab. And that today to apply is extremely difficult. Hence, what is the riwayah الثانية of the madhab in terms of istihbab, similar to the Hanafi madhab, but the Hanafi madhab is wujub. Here istihbaban, the fuqaha say, and we apply it today, what I'm going to mention, for a few reasons. We're going to say that Uthman radiallahu anhu, or Zuhri rahmatullahi alayhi, he says that the Sahaba, when their zakah day came, then they would give zakah on all their wealth. They'd give zakah on all their wealth. Therefore, what we'd say to the person, istihbaban, is on the day of your zakah, your nisab continued, you look at everything that you own. Right? We're going to mention in details exactly towards the end what you own, deducting your debts, etc., and what to count exactly. But in summary, you're going to count everything that you have, and then you give zakah on that. Some of it, the hawl would actually be the day, and others of it, according to the mashhur, it would not be the day of zakah. It would be zakah you're giving in advance, which is permissible. It is permissible. Not better to do so in general, but we're going to mention why it's better in this mas'ala. But it's permissible to give zakah in advance. So the rest of the money you're going to be giving zakah in advance. And we say istihbaban because of that reason, the narration I mentioned, and also because the qaida is that ikhtilat yaj'alu ash-shay ka-shay al-wahid, that when something is mixed in a manner it cannot be separated. It's as if that thing now becomes one thing. What do we mean by that in our example? Most people have have 1 or 2 bank accounts. Their monies go to that bank account. So you get a salary. Your salary, is it from profits or not? It's not from a profit. So that money you get money per month. You get your salary, let's say per month. That would mean your salary, if it is over the Nisaab, every month it would need to have its own hawl. You'd be paying Zakah the whole year, which is against the objective of Zakah. It makes it more difficult now to pay Zakah every month. Therefore, that's one thing. Number 2, your salary would go into your most people or many people would have 1 account. Your salary would go into 1 account. You get a gift from somebody or to your bank account, it will be into 1 account. So you cannot be sure which amount is for which month. And when you spend from your money, from your bank account, you cannot be sure that I've spent from this amount, from that January amount, or Muharram, or February amount, that is Safar. You are not sure. So therefore, it's as if they take one. It's as if they become one. So therefore, today, that's why the fatwa of many ulama across the madhahib is that we are following the ahnaf in this mas'ala. The only difference is the ahnaf would say wujuban, you do this. All of the wealth, whatever comes in throughout the year, they all connected to your main wealth. They have a few extra masail with Nisaab and the hawl, etc. And we say here, according to what we explained on the madhab, that we say istihbaban. It would almost reach wujuban, because you may not know then when is your zakah day actually for the others. So you may end up delaying your zakah because you didn't know which is your zakah day, because you don't know this amount, what is left from it that you got a month later, etc. So therefore, on the day of your zakah, you just see what you're worth. What's the amount in your bank account, amount in your wallet, your gold or silver that's not jewelry, deduct your debts that you owe, add the debts that are owed to you, and then you add your trading inventory. That we'll mention all the details exactly, inshallah, in upcoming lessons. So that's what you do. And the last reason for that is, we mentioned in the previous lesson in fasting that from the qawaid of the Hanabila in ibadat is al-ihtiyat, that they take the precautionate route. They go with precaution most of the time, because these things connect to Allah. Zakah connects to Allah along with the ibad, with the slaves of Allah, but also to Allah. So therefore, out of precaution, we're going to take this opinion, and therefore this mas'ala, zakah should be paid, not obligatory. But on the day of your zakah, you count all of your money, you count all of your wealth, irrespective of the reason you gain this money. So that's an important mas'ala. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to teach us that which benefits us, and benefit us with that which He teaches us. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.